Hi, good evening, and welcome to the school committee meeting of Tuesday, July 18th, 2023. I'd like to welcome everyone and call the meeting to order. We'll start our meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I'm going to read the mission statement, which we start all our meetings with. The vision of the Wakefield Public Schools is to graduate students who are confident, lifelong learners, who are respectful and caring members of their community. Our mission is to prepare students for college, career, and community by providing rich and challenging curriculum, high-quality instruction, and educational experiences that meet their individual needs and interests. We're going to open it up for public comment. Our audience is small today, but if there was anyone in the audience who would like to speak, or if we have anyone on Zoom, now is the time for public comment. No one? Okay. So we're done with public comment. Do we have a motion for the consent agenda?
We do.
Great.
Move that the school committee approve the minutes of June 27th, 2023 school committee meeting as presented.
The motion's been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? No? All those in favor? Okay. So, it passes unanimously. Thank you. We're going to go to, do we have any budget items, Christine?
No, so we asked that the budget items be moved to the August meeting because we're still in the midst of finalizing all the transfers and completing. We just completed the last batch of bills this week, so we'll have more to discuss in August.
Okay. No gifts?
No gifts.
Okay. And now on to Doug.
Good evening. We would like to pick up where we left off in the last meeting with the Warrior logo. So just to recapture some of the conversation and summarize quickly, in our last meeting, we sent out a survey and had almost 500 responses. And what we were looking at was you'll see on the screen, you'll see option A. It's the kind of the circle Warrior, Wakefield Warrior with a W in the center with stars on either side. That logo image was shared in our first survey in the last meeting. The results were shared with two other images that had, they were a shield essentially with a W that was a lightning bolt, and one that was more a round image with, again, W, which was a lightning bolt. The feedback that we got overwhelmingly that the circle Wakefield Warrior logo was really what was preferred in the last survey. But in kind of conferring with Morgan Gennady, she felt like, she would like us to, she had asked that if we could consider a kind of something a little bit more, what she described as more current. Again, it has the shield, so there's a connection there to what was produced originally by a student. But the Warriors, it kind of had a similar look to kind of the older image. And so she'd asked for us to consider the two. We discussed it, and we really wanted to give the community every opportunity to weigh in. So we did another survey with kind of the preferred logo from the last survey, and this new image, which we're kind of sharing here as option B. And so, the option A, option B, that's how they were presented on a second survey that was sent out. Now, it was when school was out of session, and we really appreciate the input for kids and them participating in the survey. We didn't have almost 500 this time, but we did have in grades 8 through 12, 323 students that participated. The feedback was that there was a preference for option A. So I think based on that feedback and based on kind of where the little input that we got from adults on this, I think I would like to recommend to school committee that we consider option A as our new logo moving forward. I would also like to suggest that and be clear that we would try to produce some guidance from the Policy and Communication Subcommittee around modifying this image. If, for example, a team wanted to take that W with Wakefield Warriors, if, for example, the hockey team or the lacrosse team, or even if music wanted to put a treble clef in the middle, or if hockey wanted to put hockey sticks across the W, like that would be a nice way to kind of individualize that logo for individual sports. But we'd like to provide a little guidance there. Again, not to control everything that happens, but just to kind of authenticate and make sure that we are staying with the logo that we feel like represents the Wakefield Public Schools in the most thoughtful way. So with that information, my recommendation to school committee is that we consider option A as the logo that we would move forward with.
Do we want to make a motion?
I'll ask a few questions, I guess.
Okay.
On option A, Doug, is it possible, let's say we decide as a group to move motion A forward and accept your recommendation. Could we, with that, allow Morgan to our next meeting, not to be approved again by this committee, but to work on like whatever she feels like tightening up spacing or angling, versus just saying if we accept A, it has to be accepted exactly as it's seen on the screen here?
I don't know that when in other districts that have changed their logos, I don't know if they have kind of micromanaged, and I'm not saying that we're going to micromanage, but I don't know if they have said, you know, we want to kind of lock in one font, one way. It's more generally like the circle image with the Wakefield Warriors in it, with the W in the center, will be the image that we're voting on, right? So what could change, and this is where might be policy and communication might be in this space, Pete, where I think, for example, you know, to say, depending on the color of a T-shirt that you might be putting the image on, you know, you might still use the 3 colors that are presented or the 4 colors that are presented, but the W might be black, right? And the other image is red. If it's on, for example, a red T-shirt, but it would be in keeping with what the symbol represents, right?
So I think we're saying the same thing. My main concern with A as it is I feel like B has had more time for refinement than A, and I just don't like. I know we want to pick one, get it done, and have something ready based on what I heard in the last meeting from this committee in time for the next school year. But my concern is I don't want to, like, I don't want to say to not allow our graphic artist another few weeks until our next meeting to do the refinements if we give, you know, if we say to her, A is our choice. I personally consider myself a little mixed on this topic. I mean, I think as a standalone logo, I do personally like A better, but I also look at the data, and the student data, you know, keep saying circle over shield. One of the things that, you know, I think would have helped was the community and the kids getting to see some of the ways B could have been adjusted to show some of the other teams. And I think B lends itself to a lot more flexibility in that regard than A. And that's where I personally have a little conflict in this one. But if the committee does say to move forward A as a group, I would definitely want to make sure that we give the opportunity for the graphic artist Morgan to work on some of those tightening up pieces and come to our meeting on August 8th with something, not for us to vote on again, but that is high res, is final, you know, with whatever adjustments she feels are necessary. Not say you must do option A as exactly it is on the screen with no modifications.
Got it. Do you think that the policy and communication group could guide that?
I would think that would be awesome if we could continue to iterate. There is a meeting of that group. I think, well, there hopefully will be one, hasn't been posted yet, but I think
And the other part, I don't want to interrupt you, excuse me. The other part that I think is something important to consider is that I think Morgan is on vacation right now, so I don't know what her availability is. So well, I haven't spoken to her about this, so it would be great to say we'll have her back, but I don't know that she's available, which makes me think that for this to kind of be worked on with a subcommittee might be that has some flexibility, right? That can meet some different times, that can meet via Zoom, might still allow the committee to make, to vote on an image for us to move forward, but if there are refinements, that it could happen that way. But again, this is my recommendation has been made, and it's up to the committee.
So do you want to make a motion and then we
I
can
would-
open it to discussion?
Absolutely.
Okay, great.
I would make a motion that we support the superintendent's recommendation of option A, the circle with the W logo, as the new logo for the Wakefield Memorial High School Warriors.
Second.
Okay, a motion's been made and seconded, so we'll open it up for discussion. Oh, hi, yes, Tom.
Well, first of all, I think we need to appreciate the fact that we're now about 2.5 years in from beginning this process, and we are hopefully enthusiastically winding down. But one of the things that I think, in addition to that, or actually as a complement to that, is that the work of the last couple of years, while it may be frustrating from time to time, I think has sparked some good conversation around the community, healthy conversation around the community. Hasn't always been necessarily on our side, but that's okay. The fact that many people felt that they should be heard, I think is a positive part of this work. And I think the fact that we have at least the 7 members of the school committee and the superintendent and his team, regardless of who sat around this table, 7 people, have always wanted student voice to be an important part of this decision, and always made sure that we went back to that. And I think that's a critically important piece. And I think that we're seeing that represented here in the results that the superintendent presented now, as well as the results from last time. So I'm certainly prepared to support the superintendent's recommendation. I appreciate what Mr. Davis is saying, and with the exception of the comments that Mr. Lyons made around not micromanaging, I think we need to bring this to a very thoughtful conclusion, and I think it's a sharp, classy, sharp image that has lots of places to go. So I want to thank everyone that has been involved, and thank the administration, and certainly thank Morgan and the art department and art students and everyone that has contributed, not just moments of time, but literally years of time.
Really?
I would have just said the same. Just thank you to everybody, because it's been such a process that's involved community members and students and athletic directors and administration and art department. There's been so many hands on this, and you can draw a line through all of its iterations, sort of from the first community forums up through. So it's nice to see the design come through, and I'm so glad that we got to hear so many student voices about it. I hope the students that voted sort of for a logo for one, and this logo specifically, feel ownership in it. I think that's sort of been the story all along. We just want the student body to feel that this embodies them. And so it feels like it strikes that chord. So thankful for everyone who took the time, made it a thoughtful process.
So just thank you for Dr. Lyons. The option B came in last week, right before our meeting, and I'm glad we shared it, because I feel like we've been transparent through this whole process, and I personally liked option B better, but I did get some emails, and the emails I received, everyone was in favor of option A. So thank you to Morgan for her creativity.
No question. I think Morgan is someone who I think it would be remiss of us, no matter what the vote is,
Right.
to not have her back at some point when she's available, to publicly recognize her work in this space.
Because they were all different. All different tastes, these different versions she has served. So if there's no more comments, I guess we could vote and celebrate, right? So all those in favor of the motion, which is option A. Any opposed? No? Passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you so much. The next item on the agenda is budget, and really, just to add to what Christine said, we are working at closing out the FY '23 budget right now, and we will be kind of making a report in our next meeting that's a little bit more comprehensive. But right now, we're reconciling everything. We're also in the process of applying for closing out current grants and applying in the new fiscal year for new grants, especially the grants that are repeating year after year. Our Title I grant, Title II, Title III, Title IV, and our 2 special education grants. So there'll be more information to follow. Skipping down on my list in regard to comments in terms of grants, we were notified on Friday evening, late, that the grant application that we made for our Acceleration Academy, which we have used in the district. In the past, we've done a little math work, but the majority of the money has gone to us doing kind of welcoming our new kindergartners into the district. We do a lot of work over the course of, a few weeks. And it's great for teachers, it's great for kids. It's essentially, your classes are cut in half, so it's about half the size. It's like a soft opening for kindergarten, and they're the only people in the school. And so I've seen this for 3 years now, and in the 3 years that I've seen it, at the end of the 2-week session that we do this, I have not seen tears coming in. I have seen tears when it has ended, when students have had to leave. And so I think that has been really a wonderful, wonderful way, a creative way for us to take grant money and to really improve the qualitative kind of work that we're doing with students and adults that really transcends. And when we start school, it really works well. And so, and I'm making note of the timeline because we heard late Friday night, and on Sunday, teachers were notified around hiring and interviewing on Sunday from Kara Morrow. I'm sure everyone was very excited to. I'm sorry, Saturday. Probably not working on Sunday, but okay. But my goodness. But we got that turned around very quickly, and that's in place. And we also got an increase of about 15 or 17% over last year, which is great, which is really great.
Yeah, that was really, we were reflecting on, it's just nice having this be the 3rd year we've done it, to be able to reflect a little bit more on what worked, what didn't, what could we have used more with. So we, in our grant request this year, we asked for additional money to support bringing in special education teachers, just to increase. We've always had the program open to all, all of our students, regardless of needs, and supported and staffed accordingly. But just trying to be even more thoughtful about inclusion and what that looks like for all of our students. So we have additional money this year to support special ed teachers coming on board, in addition to lead teachers and paras. And we have nurse coverage as well for the 2 years, so 2 weeks, not 2 years, the 2 weeks. So should be really, really good. And we're already getting great response rates from parents. We sent when we heard they were going to offer the grant, I think it was, Doug, in June, early June. Yep. We sent an interest survey to parents just to give them a heads up it might happen. So we're getting pretty good response rates from parents, but we understand it's later notice than we would ideally ever have, because I know parents start making summer plans in January, February, in the winter for the summer, because that's what you need to do. So we appreciate everybody working to try to attend.
If
It's a really great program.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. My daughter did it, I think, either the first year or the second year, and it's wonderful, so.
Yeah. And with the chair's permission, I think we would like to invite maybe some of the teachers and maybe a student or two that participated to hear about their experience. I think that would be, that'd be nothing I would love more than to just hear a little bit about that. All right?
I just have a question, because Kara said at the end that timing is hard for parents who've already made plans. And how come the grant comes out so late? It's just, is it a summer grant?
On the edge of our seat, like waiting.
Oh.
But I think it's just the way it goes. I don't
And
know.
that's
I
how
think
It was just.
has to go through a
it's-
couple
It's the issue, it was just approved at the State House.
Yeah.
Oh,
So the
okay.
money just came, they just got the go-ahead
Okay.
We reached out to the Department of Ed on Wednesday. We had heard that it was closing Friday. It didn't come until Friday night. And then Saturday, we had everything queued, ready to go, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we did all the anticipated planning.
Yeah.
As soon as we knew we were able to apply for it. So we were ready to go as soon as we got the word.
We think that this is such a win for our students. We were starting to have a conversation, if this doesn't get funded through the grant,
Right.
how might we be able to fund it? That was kind of the next part of the conversation, which we fortunately didn't have to go too far.
How much is the grant for?
$117,000?
112.
So that's about how much
600.
it costs?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, great. Congratulations, thank you.
First of all, I think the program is awesome. I didn't have a kid who did it, but I've heard such positive things about it. I do have a quick question. We sent out this interest survey in June. Did we have the dates in mind in that, or did we
We
not?
did.
So we shared those.
Yeah,
in
so
June.
the interest survey was just sharing what the program is, and if we were to get the grant to fund the program, we would run these 2 weeks, which week is better for you. And then kindergarten screening happened, class lists were made, given to me. I was able to take the class list and then, based on parent preference for weeks, divvy up the kids and then send it out. And since I've sent out the notification, I've asked parents, I know a lot's probably come up even since June. If this week's better than that week, let me know. If you can only go 3 days and you can't go 5, let me know, no worries. And we just try to be as flexible as possible.
Great.
So it's worked out.
Yeah, good news.
Great. Thank you as well to Kara Morrow for her work on the grant and getting the application in so quickly. Things that came up in our last meeting, there was a question about a master list of quarries. We do have a master list of quarries. It is a tremendous amount of work to keep kind of that list, kind of the revolving list of, what parents need to be on the list and how we're distributing that. And that exists. Karen Fitzpatrick is doing that work. Paula Noble is also going to be helping her this summer in between a number of commitments that they both have, but they're going to work on that. This was an item that was discussed as a question in the last meeting, and I said that I would check on that and come back. We also had a question about the electric bus grant and the talk and focus on electric bus grants, just for informational and for background, just background information on kind of how we in our district, how we use buses. So we have very few buses in our district. So the same 9 buses serve all 3 levels, right? So they serve elementary, middle, and high, right? So in their staggered, what allows the company, North Reading Transportation, you'll hear the term NRT, it's North Reading Transportation, what allows the company to schedule those few buses to transport all 3 levels is the staggered start times and the staggered end times. And so, for example, they'll drop off at high school, they'll drop off at middle, then they'll drop off at elementary because they have later start times. But in regard to the electric bus grants, so NRT owns the buses and we contract with NRT. So, and I know that all bus companies across the state right now are being kind of asked to reduce their carbon footprint. But in terms of us making an application for a bus grant, in terms of our large buses, that would have to go through NRT. We do have smaller buses that we operate. We have 4, correct?
3.
3.
Well, we do have one that's a spare that's not being used every day.
Okay, so 4?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry.
So you have 4 buses that are not electric that were purchased new in the last 3 years?
Yes, since I've been here.
So, so at this point, to make application for an electric bus grant would mean that we would have to sell and repurchase. We're not quite there yet, but in the future, I do think there are going to start to be more and more. First, I think it's going to come via guidance, and then I think it's going to come with a little bit more than guidance in the future in regard to mandates around the need to have a certain percentage of your fleet be electric. So more to report on that at a future date. But that was also a question that came up at the end of the last meeting. Wanted to revisit that. Policy update. And so just for background, we are working on reviewing our entire policy book with the Mass Association of School Committee representation. Dorothy Presser is taking the lead on that. Dorothy Presser works for MASC. She's currently on vacation for a couple weeks. When she gets back, we're going to pick up this work. We're through, I think, 3 of 6 or 7 sections right now, but there'll be more to follow on policy and coming up in our upcoming meetings. Special education update, and Rosie Galvin has been here every day, working with principals to fill roles that we have open. We don't have many roles open, but it is a labor-friendly market right now. And you've heard me say this before in these meetings, either you're recruiting or being recruited. And so we have had a few special education teachers that have left, and we are working to fill those positions. And we're thinking creatively about all available candidates. If it's a difficult to fill position, we're thinking about, posting the position, seeing who we might be able to attract, and then kind of after we review those applicant pools, if we can hire someone terrific in that space, that's great. We're also really looking at and considering internal candidates as well, and how we might be able to support different personnel to move into some different positions that might be a great fit for them and a nice opportunity for them as well. So that's just a very quick special education update. I spoke about grants already, so that closes out my section.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Dr. Lyons? No? Okay, so I have comments and updates. I only have one update. I submitted an application to be part of Town Day, which is Saturday, October 7th. Is that a Saturday? I know it's October 7th. I'm assuming it's Saturday. But it's been received, so I'll have more information. Yes, Saturday. I'll have more information. I'll send out an email. But we will have a table. We'll do something fun. And then the other item I have is a Good Friday discussion. This was asked to be added to the agenda a couple months ago, maybe? Yeah. So before we start the Good Friday discussion, I made a little slide, just give a little history to know how we got to where we are with Good Friday. Back in March 26th of 2019, when the school committee was voting on the calendar that year, there was a motion made to remove Good Friday as a holiday and make it a regular school day, and that passed 4-3. If you're interested, you could actually go back in WCAT archives and you can watch that meeting. There's a good discussion, healthy discussion about that. And then the next year, when the first year, which would have been the first year that we had Good Friday as a regular school day, was COVID. So I don't know how many people noticed that we were actually in school, because most of us were home working remotely. And then the following year, in 2021, it was a hybrid year. So I believe we weren't in school on Fridays, but you could correct me. Maybe some were in school and some weren't. So it wasn't a big impact to the district. And then the next year, Good Friday happened to fall on the Friday before April vacation. And that's the year that we canceled school. We took a snow day in April, even though there was no snow. So then this year, which is 2023, I don't have the exact date. From the feedback we received, which was a lot, the elementary went well, and Galvin went as a regular school day, but we did get a lot of feedback about the high school and that there were students sitting in the cafeteria most of the day, and that's just not a very productive way to hold a school day. So I'm just opening this up for discussion. I'm not advocating that we're putting Good Friday back on as a holiday, but we need to be more productive than sitting in cafeterias. So I don't know if anyone had any comments.
I do have some comments. I'm just curious. Doug, do you have anything you want to add to
Oh,
that
I don't know
before
if you have any data.
So this past year,
Yeah.
which was April 7th, we had we had a high number of faculty out and students faculty that were out observing the day, right? And in addition to that, there are other people that are out that are on leave for personal reasons or for any number of different reasons. And people that are not all of the people that were out that day took a religious day, but the numbers were high, and on April 7th, not quite as high as they were on the Friday that butted up against the April vacation. The problem with the numbers is the numbers don't tell the whole story. It's really about the distribution. right? So for example, it's, if we have a fixed number of people out, it's not an equal number at every elementary school or a proportional number at elementary school, proportional at middle and proportional at high. We kind of have to take what comes and then respond accordingly. We do know this past year, a number of our schools had very few people out, and they had very productive days, and it worked very well. This year, different than years past, it just so happened that there were, again, because it's not a perfect distribution, and it hasn't been over the course of the years that I've been here, that the numbers of both faculty and staff that were out were a lot or have been high. So it's just different at different schools, and Amy's point about, how do you handle that? What do you do? I think that that's a very appropriate question, and I think that needs to be put to the administration, myself, and the high school administrative team to talk that through, to really create some options if the high school is, has that high distribution, or if the middle school had the high distribution. So it shouldn't just be broached with one level. It should be broached with more than one level to really go through a few different scenarios thoughtfully, because this is not an issue at just one level, right? It's a challenge for the district, right? It's a challenge for the district.
Yeah, we could look at what other districts do. I know there was one district I looked into that they call it a low attendance day. I don't know if they do service work, but there's options out there. So we can only go up from here, right?
Yeah, I think, like I said, the next part is really to engage the high school faculty and the high school administration around, if not A, then what's B, right? And because the other part is that we don't want, people have a right to take their religious holidays,
Right.
and people also have a right to attend school. So it's balancing the needs of all parties, and I do think we can be creative in that space, and I do think, like I said, the next part of this conversation is to bring it back to faculty and admin.
The piece that I kind of struggled with here is we have 180 days to work with, and it just felt like, specifically at the high school, but it may have been a little bit at some of the other schools, it just wasn't a productive day of the 180. I know I'm kind of repeating back what you said, Doug, but maybe in different words. So my question is, I have a few of them. Number one, what does it cost? Like, say, I think you calculated we had 104 staff out. What is it costing us to put 104 temporary teachers? I mean, beyond the fact that it's a massive amount of temporary teachers for us to even find, I'm sure. What is the cost for us to put 104 temporary teachers in our school for a day?
Whatever if we had 104 teachers available.
Oh, we didn't actually fill all the people who were out?
No, we did
Okay.
not.
And then what else?
Not even close. Not
Okay.
even close. Right. So that's not an easy question to answer.
Okay.
And so, the easy way to answer it is if we had 104 subs and the sub rate is X, then 104 times the sub rate. If we have existing staff in buildings backfilling, there is, both our teachers and our Unit C members, our paraeducators, get a differential for subbing for a class. So, if we had a sub, it would be a sub rate. If we had someone backfilling, it would be that. Or in the event that, there was general supervision for more than one class, it would be a different rate. Yeah.
And so I assume the answer is yes. DESE considers that a real school day when we have kids that are just kind of sitting in the cafeteria, like that counts towards 990 hours?
Well, the Department of Ed is not going to micromanage a religious holiday. That's a losing proposition, I think, any way you slice it. So I don't think DESE has an interest in micromanaging how districts are, allowing people to take the religious holiday that they're entitled to.
Yeah. I mean, the challenge I see is that I think every district has their own pieces in the contract as to what teachers can take for religious days. Does it count as a vacation day? Does it not count for a vacation day? In Wakefield, as far as I can tell, in the current teacher's contract, teachers are entitled to 3 additional days off in addition to their vacation days for religious holidays. And so, I mean, what I'm struggling with in this day is it just seems like as our contract currently stands and is kind of the past, I'm going to just take the past couple of years because the other years, since we made this change, weren't really school days on Good Friday. I don't think this has really been a successful change. And I hate to revisit a decision. I don't necessarily want to make a decision as a group forever here, but I feel like something has to change here. And whether it's a day of low attendance and we tack it on somewhere else in the school year, or maybe we can find something more useful to put in that day, like maybe it's a day of service, if that is allowed to count towards the 990 hours. And that at least would be a day. I mean, we also had, looks like 636 students out sorry, is that, look at the right year, 636 students out as well. Maybe that would have encouraged more students to come to school if there was something really exciting going on during that day. So I encourage us to do something. I don't think waiting another year and doing the same thing we did this year is really a recipe for success. I mean, I heard from many of the same parents as Amy did, and their kids are calling them to be picked up because they're kind of, bored and just sitting in the cafeteria. And I just think it's kind of our responsibility. If we're going to provide a day, the day has to be useful. It doesn't mean it has to be a typical school day. Like, let's change it into something that's really a cool day that people are going to want to be there in school if we're allowed to count that towards our 990 hours, 180 days. And if we can't do that and it's going to be the day like we had this year, my recommendation would be we don't have school on that day. It doesn't have to be a religious holiday, but we can call it whatever we want, day of low attendance, and we find some other day to have school when people aren't taking the day off. That would be my thought on it.
Yeah, right. I added it to the agenda. Well, it was a request of Pete to have a discussion, not to make any decisions tonight, and to let those parents that did reach out, we hear you, and we're going to do a better job in the coming years.
So based on your comments, Doug, do you think maybe once you talk to administration, you could find out, is there a possibility to turn that into a day that could count as a school day, but would be maybe more exciting for staff and students, where maybe some of them would, give up their religious holiday and decide they want to come in for that special, day? It's still their choice at the end of the day, but maybe something, special and exciting on that day would make it more appealing.
Yeah, I think next step, as I shared, I think the next step for us at the district level is to have a conversation with school level administration and just talk this through. And I also think faculty need to be included in the conversation as well.
Yeah. So if you have any fun ideas, you can forward them to us. And does anyone else have any comments about? Go ahead. Kevin.
I wasn't on the school committee when this decision was made. I have no, I can't say what the arguments were for taking the holiday off, but I assume that one argument for this policy change was to have a full day of school within the middle part of the year, like in April. And one thing that I think everyone can agree with is, the later you get into June, generally the less effective education happens within the school. I think as a teacher myself, I am much more effective on April 10th than I am on June 10th in general. So I can see that possibly one argument for the current policy is that the idea is, to have, as many days, of educational value within the year. I do agree with you, Pete, that I think that we do have to come up with creative solutions. Thinking outside the box, I think, is definitely a good idea to make sure that you don't have, warehousing of kids in the cafeteria and have absolutely no education take place. So I think that, I do think that,
So-
conversation with faculty and administration is necessary.
Okay.
But I wasn't there, but
I
can
don't
never
know.
go
I don't know if we want to lead with the phrase warehousing of kids.
Did I say that?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
So I just don't know if that's an appropriate description. I do think students had assignments, and I do think a lot of students came and worked, and should be given appropriate credit, right? And as well as the teachers that supervised in those spaces as well. So.
Can I just ask for clarity, when this was decided in 2019, again, I was not on the committee, so I have not gone back to the WCAT archives to watch it, but maybe I will. It was to eliminate all, like, not just Good Friday, it was all religious holidays that would not be counted as, or was it specifically for Good Friday? I thought it was to make sure that we are equal amongst all religions, that
Well, I
they
think it was the
wouldn't
only
get
religious holiday,
Yes.
so.
There was only one left. Yeah.
You were there.
Tom
Tom.
was there.
Who was here? Was he the only one?
I can tell you.
Okay.
No,
Tom, tell us. How did that conversation go?
I'm trying to avoid this conversation like the plague.
Tell me
but
how this
okay,
went.
Okay.
Just a background of the actual.
So,
Cliff notes.
Yeah, so there were kind of two sort of primary drivers. Certainly the one that Kevin Fontanella just mentioned was certainly part of it. When any day that is taken off, whether it's a snow day or some other thing that adds to lengthening the time into June, is never a productive use of time. So that was part of the conversation. The other part of the conversation was really to get us as a public school out of the business of recognizing a Christian holiday, frankly, recognizing a religious holiday. And that was a significant part of the conversation, that more and more districts were moving toward that, more and more businesses, more and more parts of the world or the parts of our state and country were working to remove a religious designation and religious observance from public calendars. And that was another, probably equally as important. We did appreciate that there was going to be, there was certainly some pushback. There was some pushback from parents, from staff, principally from the teachers union, that they really wanted, that it was a day on their calendar, felt like something that we're taking away, and indeed we were. But really, that was the driving argument. Those were the two parts. And whether we call it a low attendance day, or whether there's lots of ways to sort of land in but with certainly a recognition of a religious holiday.
Got it.
Oh, did
Go
you have
ahead,
your hand up?
Stephen.
Well, yeah, I would also say, sort of recognizing as you look down, we haven't had a lot of chances to sort of implement this fully. And I think it's a little premature to sort of say that we're not being successful in this space. I think we hit sort of a significant speed bump. It felt significant to some families last year. They would have, especially, I think you pointed this out, Doug, it was at the high school level. The elementary school functioned, high school functioned, or Galvin functioned normally.
But I want to stress, on any given year,
Yeah.
that distribution could change, right? And so,
I agree. I was just going to say, so there was a subset of things where we could probably do things a little bit better.
Right.
And I'd like to give sort of the district an opportunity to work in that space now that you have some sort of insight into what, might be happening. And I think that won't necessarily be exactly what's replicated next year. You will come up with some inventive ways to sort of, address what I think others had sort of seen as we could do this educational time a little bit better. And whether that's at the high school or the Galvin or the elementary, I think the team is well equipped to sort of handle that sort of fluctuation. So I just think it's a little bit premature to sort of say this isn't working. We have to come and do sort of not an about face, but even to create a separate day. Seems soon.
Oh, go ahead, Tom.
Well, just one thing to add with regard to the data, and the most significant impact being in 2022, and it shouldn't be just considered a coincidence that was the Friday before April School Vacation Week. So I'm not convinced that the Christian churches were filled as much as we may be represented. But I think that was even to your point, Stephen, that we haven't had enough under us. Whereas the first real year of this being tried was the Friday of April school vacation.
Yep.
And that can't be discounted either.
Yeah, basically, I think, Steve, you make a great point that I think 3 years from now, like looking at the data from like this year, next year, the year after that, I mean, I would foresee that this would become less of an issue. Hopefully I'm right, maybe I'm wrong, but I would think just because the policy was made, and then we had, 2 crazy years right after it, I think that I would be hopeful that this, even without creative solutions, I would think that this problem would start to get less and less as time goes on.
Go ahead, Pete.
So, I mean, I think March 29th, 2024 should be the most exciting day at WPS in terms of all the fun stuff for kids to do when they come to school. And I think that's going to be the real answer as to whether this special awesome day that happens to happen on Good Friday encourages people to skip going to church that day and come to school. If the answer is it doesn't, then I think we should, look to revisit this based on 2 things. One, what I mentioned about our teachers, they've got 3 additional days they can take off for religious holidays, and they're choosing to take this as one of those days by a large number. And then number 2, there are very few reasons in our student handbook for kids to get an excused absence. I've learned that there isn't much of a difference between an excused and unexcused absence, but a religious holiday counts at the same level of an excused absence as somebody passing away or having a doctor's visit. So, I think based on those, I think our challenge to you, Doug, is let's make that March 29th, 2024 school day awesome, and let's see if it changes the trajectory of that day. If it doesn't, then I think we should come back to the realization that this day is not a productive school day district-wide, not necessarily picking on one individual school, and find another day to teach kids out of those 180. That's kind of my closing thoughts.
Thank you. Go ahead, Tom.
Thanks. I guess, so Pete, I guess my only thought about that, it just reacting to your thoughts is the biggest concern that I have about the idea about making it special is that we're recognizing an event. We're recognizing a religious day and making it different. I think it should be a normalized school day, which we expect our teachers and staff to perform, and we should expect students to come to school. I think anything that we do different on that day is a recognition of a religious day, and that concerns me. I don't think we should have any days that are better than others. I think every 180 days should be of excellent teaching, of excellent learning, and that should be our expectation. So I don't necessarily, disagree that we need some space and time in order to create an expectation around a quality day. But I'm concerned about recognizing that day as any different than any other school day.
Go ahead, Kevin.
And I think that every student in Wakefield Public Schools and every teacher and every administrator in Wakefield Public Schools, if they are religiously observant on a day, like as outlined in the contract, should be allowed, if a student is religiously observant for a Jewish holiday, a Muslim holiday, whatever religion they are observing, that they should be allowed to take that day off without any consequences if they're a student, and with staff, those days are in the contract, and that's why they're there. So I agree that.
But that's
they
our
should,
practice, right? That's currently our practice.
Yes, right. Yeah,
We
absolutely.
have a policy on religious holidays.
Absolutely, and I think that, and I think that, that's important that that's followed, and I think that this day should be treated like when, we're in school, just like any other school day. And I just want to make sure that, we make sure that policy is followed. I'm not trying to.
Yeah, my main concern with this is we saw how that went this year, and I don't have any belief that next year is going to be any different. So we can see how March 29th, 2024 goes, but if nothing changes, then at what point do we realize that this wasn't a productive school day? Because at the end of the day, I'm not advocating for this day off because I celebrate Good Friday. I do not celebrate Good Friday. I'm only looking at it that this was not a productive school day for our kids, and we owe them 180 productive school days.
Thank you. Anybody else? Well, that's all I have. So we're going to go to subcommittee reports. Finance and facilities. Mr.
The
Markham?
Finance Committee has not met since our last meeting, although I would anticipate that we should have a meeting before our next meeting in support of the work that Christine and the administration are doing. So we will set something up.
Okay, thank you. Labor and personnel, Mr. Ingles?
Yep. Labor and Personnel has been meeting in relation to WEA Unit A negotiations. Those are going well. We haven't, well, we've met sort of in sort of strategy meetings as a subcommittee here and there. Not recently, but we will likely have to put one on the books between now and our next meeting with WEA. But that is it for now.
Thank you. Student services?
We have not met since our last meeting, but I will be setting up a meeting in August before the start of the school year.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
And policy and communications?
Yes, so there is a policy, number 217, which regards public participation when we have public comment at school committee meetings. Basically a policy that regulates how public comment should take place. And Pete Davis looked through the policy and made some great revisions. I just wanted to bring up this policy, which is policy 217. I had two things I wanted to bring up.
Point of order, do we need to move this to the table for we have a discussion?
Oh, yes, this is.
So it was on the table. It's on the table.
Judy told me it wasn't, because I asked her.
But then we take it off the table.
Yes, I think, I asked Judy, can you clarify, is this on the table, or do we need to move it to the table?
It was withdrawn at the last meeting. It was withdrawn, so it'll be placed on the table tonight.
Can I make a motion?
Don't we have a motion?
Yes. Can I make, you
Yes.
Okay.
want to make it, Stephen?
No?
Okay. Move that the school committee lay on the table for 3 weeks' consideration and vote at the next school committee meeting on August 8th, 2023. Policy number 217, public participation as presented.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded to place this policy on the table. All those in favor? Opposed? Passes unanimously. I didn't even open it for discussion.
Yeah, do you want to do that before?
I was going so fast.
Oh, wait, does that mean we can't discuss it?
Should we? Can we undo our vote so we can have a discussion?
Well, that's what the next meeting's for.
Okay, so save it for next.
So it's on the table, right, so then we'll review it again, and then we'll discuss it at the next meeting. Sorry about that.
Okay. All right. And yes, the next policy and communications meeting should be next Tuesday at 5 o'clock. That is it.
Liaison reports. Does anyone have a liaison update? Go ahead.
I have a small one. So I am the new liaison to the Human Rights Commission, and they had a brief onboarding for their new members that I attended recently with their newly elected chair, Sherry Oken. And their next meeting is actually right now during our meeting because they meet every third Tuesday. So I'm not at that meeting, but I'm now in their communication chain for anything going on, and they know to keep me in the loop for any updates. So I'll report back on anything that they give me.
Thank you. Anybody else? I am the liaison for the Sustainability Committee. I attended the meeting last week, so I just have a couple updates to share from them. They will have a table at the Farmers Market on July 29th if anyone wants to stop by. They will also have a table at Town Day, which is Saturday, October 7th. And then they're asking the general public if anyone has an electric vehicle they'd like to showcase in October, you could reach out to them. And they're also looking into having a sustainability open house and they're trying to find the greenest street in Wakefield. So if you think you live on the greenest street, you should reach out to have your street highlighted. So
Are you talking about trees or is in like vehicles, solar panels?
I'm going with vehicles and solar panels.
I remember them.
I think everyone's street's green with all the rain we've had.
Mm.
So yes, they have a lot of fun things going on. They have a Facebook page. Right now, they just put a post up about how to recycle all the Amazon packages that we're getting. So you can go out and like their page. That's all the updates I have. Future dates and agenda items. So our next school committee meeting is Tuesday, August 8th. It's going to be at 7 o'clock again. And are there any agenda items? Okay.
So on June 27th, DESE provided an updated draft of something they're now calling the Comprehensive Health and Physical Education Framework. And this is kind of an update to that curriculum they haven't done since way back in 1999. And I was wondering if it would be possible to get an update on if our staff's had a chance to review that yet, how our current curriculum differs, if any way, from what's in there, and to discuss prior to their August 28th deadline if Wakefield Public Schools would like to provide any statement. They're looking for any comments back with regards to the proposed curriculum, and we have until April 28th to submit that back. So that would be something I would like to see on maybe our August 8th meeting before that deadline.
What do you want to exactly see if we
So
have?
talk about our current health curriculum, how it aligns to the new proposed standards, and to discuss whether or not
So jump in? So the standards have not been accepted yet.
yes.
So to do a comparative analysis on standards that have not been accepted is I think it's going too quickly,
Okay.
right? So normally what we've done in the past is we've waited until the standards are accepted, right? Because they get a lot of feedback, right? And they will get a lot of feedback on the standards as they are presented, right? And then they will take that feedback and then they will create a finished copy. Once it's a finished copy, that's when it goes out to distribution for the districts and to be implemented, right? And so I think at that point, I think we could do the comparative reference or audit, right? Like, so this is where we are currently, this is what's being proposed. Based on that information, this is what we would then propose.
So based on that, what I was mainly interested in would be, by the time we get to that point, the curriculum's already set and isn't going to change, like it's already accepted.
Yeah.
We have an opportunity between now and August 28th to submit any feedback like you're
Gotcha.
talking about, and I want to make sure that we or you have the opportunity to submit that feedback to them
Yeah.
prior to that deadline.
Got it. So that's two different things then.
Yes.
Right. And so I think it was couched as kind of one sequence. So in terms of reviewing and kind of providing feedback, we can give an update in the next committee meeting where we are with that.
Yeah, I think the timeline's challenging for feedback being over the summer with not, I mean, ideally, if the deadline were within the school year, we'd probably pull together our health teachers who are closely connected
Yeah.
to the curriculum and kind of do a review, but it's all coming out pretty fast. It's not, we'll do the best we can.
I also
but
think that the
that would be the
feedback
ideal.
that is given is not always implemented.
Yeah.
Right. And so
No way.
I love that you crack yourself up. It's the best. It is very good.
I think it was last year, we had Brendan Kent come, and the health teachers, right? And they just gave an
They did,
overview of
yeah.
other current curriculum. So when this new curriculum comes out, it would probably be appropriate to have them back in and give another overview. Because it's gonna take, how long would it take
Well,
to
we
roll
would
this?
do a whole, I mean, it wouldn't be a quick overnight, everything
Right,
set
it
to
would-
go. I mean, I'm thinking recently with the
year
art
to change
standards that were just updated, we did Tom Baker presented on that and how, it was a year-long process, looking at the updates, looking at what needs to be shifted in the curriculum, what additional materials we need.
But I think, Pete, I don't know. So my sense is that you've already read them.
No, I actually haven't. I literally, it was like 45 pages.
Yeah.
And I was really looking for your feedback on
Yeah.
it. But what I wanted to do is make sure you had the opportunity to give feedback. If your opinion of the feedback process is it's not all that useful, then there really isn't a need to even give feedback, and we can just wait for the stuff to be
All right.
handed down.
Let me give an update in the next meeting.
Perfect.
And we can talk more. And I have respect for the process, so we'll go from there.
Yeah, because it can be a very long process, like state standards, once they come out, then the DOE has to say, okay, here's where you can find resources for this curriculum, and they have to give you all this information. It's such a process,
Yeah.
it's such a long process, it's
Yeah.
not like it's gonna be like September, we're going back to school, new health curriculum, y'all, like, it's not gonna be like that.
This is not the same as an updating of the math curriculum framework or the English curriculum framework. This is a different area, right? And I think we need to respect it as such, right? I think it's a change, and it's also an area that hasn't been updated in quite a few years, right? And so, long story short, I will give an update in the next meeting in terms of where we are in the feedback process. And I can also give kind of a scale and a breakout in regard to when I think that the feedback will be considered, when I think that they will kind of process that, and when I think that they might kind of complete the process and put finished frameworks out to districts. And so that's going to be more than a few weeks, right? But I will be more than happy to give an update in the next meeting.
Any other agenda items? Be a quick meeting. It won't though, because I didn't open that 217 for discussion, so I helped this meeting but hurt the next one. School committee comments. Does anyone have any closing comments? Yes.
Yeah, sure. I would say sort of last week, I think I had the opportunity to be in the Galvin School a number of different days, both picking my kid up from one of the music camps and some other occasions. And I'm just blown away by how many of our sort of school district community are still in the buildings doing work during the summer. I think growing up, I just assumed like teachers were on Hawaii on a beach in the summer, and that is so not the case. Everyone is still putting in so much time and so much effort, and the kids too taking advantage, whether it's academically or sort of with extracurriculars or whatnot. It's awesome, and the music program that sort of my kid attended was top notch, was phenomenal. How they ever got her to stand front row is beyond me. So kudos to Ms. Schwartz. To Mr. Zini, to I'm horrible things, and then Miss Janot?
No, the other music teacher.
Yeah, the other music teacher who does Dolbear or not Dolbear.
Mr. Zini does do that.
No, who does Walton and Greenwood?
So we have Samara Schwartz, we have not Michael,
No?
No.
It's a girl.
not Mike Brown. No. Oh my
Just
goodness.
curly hair.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's Samara. Has curly hair.
It is?
Yeah.
It was fantastic. They
Yeah.
also contracted with the
I'm
music
sorry,
teacher
I can't
from
pull a name right now.
Belmont.
I'm like a senior citizen.
Who I wouldn't. I do it all the time, and I feel
Yeah.
horribly for it. But just the work that they did was amazing.
So our summer programming is some of the best stuff that's happening in the district. We have over 500 kids
It's 500.
in and out of Galvin. So we have three programs happening in the building. So we have special education services happening. We have Wakefield Academy happening, and we also have music programming happening, all simultaneously. It is fantastic.
My son is in Seussical, that is also through the Wakefield schools.
Yeah.
And that performance is going to be on
Thursday?
Thursday, August 10th, right?
Yeah. Which
So,
is also the next sustainability committee.
ooh, we're going to have to skip that one because you're going to have to see your daughter in Seussical. But yeah, so it's a 4-week intensive little rehearsal schedule, and then they're going to have their performance. So that'll be awesome. And that's led by Miss Elton Nupp, who's fantastic.
Yeah.
No one found the
Oh.
music teacher's name? or
Miss
not?
Briganti.
Oh, Miss Briganti.
And there was also
Thank you,
another
Pete.
teacher
Thanks,
from
Pete.
Belmont who was there. I didn't catch her name, but she's a music teacher in Belmont. So they had the 3 Wakefield teachers and the 1 Belmont teacher. And I'll just echo what Steven said. I mean, my daughter had a blast. This was her 2nd year, I think, doing that program. And she really, really enjoyed it. They do an awesome job.
So you can just tell that the whole process from creating these programs is so thoughtful, and the feedback is just so positive. So thank you to everyone who's taking part and put them together.
Anyone else? This is kind of early to close.
Should we stay here for another 3 hours?
Do we have a motion to adjourn?
We do. Move that the school committee adjourn its meeting of Tuesday, July 18th, 2023.
Second.
The motion's been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? No? All those in favor? It passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Judy.
Thanks, Judy. Good night.